Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VENDO Velocity podcast. I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Stephanie, VIP Buyer Relations Director from ASD Market Week. If any of you have not heard about ASD Market Week, Stephanie is going to give a little run through about it in just a moment, but it's one of the biggest shows every year in Vegas. And we're excited to be jumping into a very important topic for everyone as we kick off the new year, which is retail readiness for 2026. I know a lot of brands, a lot of sellers, they're preparing for all their shows and all their buyer outreach this year. And I know it's going to be picking up really quick. I was already out in Vegas earlier this month, the second week of January, a bit early for the shows, but well worth it. And I know things are picking up here in Q1 and Q2. So really excited to be diving into, what does retail readiness mean? How brands can show up prepared, credible, and really just ready to crush it at these trade shows. There's a big investment that goes into these shows. And so we want to give you the best tips and tricks from an insider on how to maximize the opportunity. So without further ado, Stephanie, would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, your background, ASD Market Week, kind of just set the stage here for everyone.
Well, Nicholas, I'm very excited to be here. I love your varsity jacket that clearly defines Vendo as the brand. Yeah, my name's Stephanie. I have been in the trade show business for about 17 years now. And I specifically work at ASD Market Week, which is your affordable shopping destination. It's in Las Vegas 2 times a year. And it's part of a show for Emerald. Emerald Expositions actually our parent company, and they have over 120 plus shows. So any kind of show you can imagine that brings like-minded people together, we do it. My role specifically is just to make sure I connect the dots and making sure the right buyers and the right exhibitors meet so that they can do business.
Not a small feat.
No. You have to be really nosy and you have to hunt people down and say, what is it that you need? And then you got to, lead them to the right way. So it's a fun job. You get to meet so many people and partnerships. So it's a good time.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, naturally, that's how we first met, right? Was at a show, although not at ASD Market Week, but another show. And the stars aligned there, and here we are. So well, awesome. Let's get into it. Let's give the audience some real golden nuggets, as I like to call them, to grab onto and really just make sure they're leaving today's podcast with some actionable items. And on that note, too, at the very end, we'll run through some of the top tips to be retail ready, just to summarize for everybody. But we'll be getting into some good details here. So firstly, Stephanie, how would you describe buyers and how they're defining retail readiness today, right? Like, how has that changed going into 2026 compared to, maybe a few years ago?
I'm going to say it out loud. People are so tired. If you think about the last 6 years, we had COVID, and then it disrupted everything. The whole way that we do logistics and supply chain and inventory that was available on how people purchase product. So you go from that, and then recently, I'm going to say that terrible word, tariffs, right? So these are just back-to-back, really, really things that are affecting the way that we do business. So I think buyers right now, more than ever, they're looking for clarity from brands. They want to make sure that they can entrust their business with you and that you're there, not just for a one-time purchase that they're going to put on the shelf. They want repeat business, and they want to know that your brand is strong enough and that you're thinking alongside with them as a partner, that they can have that repeat buy, and it's going to consistently go out to their market where they can make some margins. So I'm going to say clarity in your product and the intent for you as a brand to be 3 times steps ahead of your buyer, so you can really help guide them and make sure that you make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, great point. And maybe not one that someone would think of right away, right? Clarity. That's unique. And I guess if I'm a brand or a seller and I'm going into the show and I really want to promote that type of clarity, what should I be doing to prepare to make sure that that's emphasized, whether in my booth setup, my materials, or how I'm maybe what I'm prepared to talk to the buyer about, right? Just to show them that I'm really on my toes and I do have a clear outlook on how I'm going to help.
So when you think like a buyer, you look at that space that you're given at a trade show and you transform it. You want it to be as real as possible so that that buyer can envision their product in their store. So if you just throw some things up at a booth and there's signage everywhere, but it doesn't really have a storytelling process to it, they're going to get confused and they might be overwhelmed and they might keep moving. So I always suggest for clients to really look at that space, how they can best utilize it. If you're going to do signage, what are your top sellers? Do you have any great, amazing deals that make sense for them to kind of pepper in so that they can grow their profits in certain areas and balance out their assortments a little bit? And then this kind of sounds funny, but how you display it, right? You want it to be clean and fresh and engaging. I want you to come in and say, oh, this looks so amazing. I want to touch it. I want to ask you questions about it, because once you get that engagement, that buyer is now going to say, okay, next steps. Do you have a pricing sheet? Is inventory available? When can I expect it to be shipped out? What are the terms and agreements? So really take a hard look at that space and say, is it inviting? And does it engage that person to come into my booth to ask the questions?
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about going to these types of shows is just seeing all the creativity that's out there, right? Seeing the new color design, the new colorways, the new designs, how packaging pops, how people really kind of customize their space to represent their brand image, right? And I guess one of the tough things, well, a couple tough things. One, really high end booths can be quite expensive, right? I know in one of my experiences when I was working on the brand side, we got pretty crafty, and we were able to bring on a few contractors to develop a custom booth, and it was like $4,000 or $5,000, which isn't a ton compared to some of the done for you services, but it ended up looking really well. So I think the moral of that story is don't be too intimidated, right? And there's even more affordable options, and you can really just jazz it up with your personality and your product. But yeah, that's a great way to kind of describe, all right, how do I get that attention, stop that buyer, when there's so much going on. And then once you have their attention, right, you mentioned just really having clarity again around like the terms and how you're going to work with them. Would you say, Stephanie, that's kind of like, it almost sounds like you're saying you should almost act as if what would I be doing if I already got the deal, right? And what's my plan? I got the deal. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Do you think like that level of preparedness is needed, or maybe that's a little overkill?
Oh, no, you need all the confidence you can muster in today's market. So I say always assume the sale, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you are equipped to be able to then proceed forward in that purchase order. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a mistake. Sometimes people are so surprised and shocked, like, oh, you want to buy this? And like, yeah, I want to buy it. So now I need specifics, right? And that's where sometimes they fail. So I'll never forget, I was talking to a buyer, and it was her first time coming to ASD Market Week, and she was just overwhelmed. There was a lot of walking to do, and she went from booth to booth. And one of her biggest pet peeves that she noted at the end of the day, because we had dinner and we were sitting and having wine, so she was spilling all the beans, but she goes, Steph, I'm so tired when I walk into a booth and they don't have a price sheet. And then they ask me to price it out for them. I'm a buyer. What would you pay for this? And so at that point, she says, I'm not there to babysit. I'm moving on. I'm going on to the next one. I can't help this person.
Yeah. That's that for many is the first impression, right? So, treating it as well as you can, being super prepared. Definitely.
And you can tweak it, right? So like if you have 5 buyers back to back that say, ooh, that price is really high and no, thank you, it is not for us. Go back and assess it real quick with your team and say, wait a minute, did we pigeonhole ourselves right now? We're at this market, we're not going to be able to do any business. And could we scale back a little bit where we're still getting the profits because that's why you're there? But maybe it needs a second look while you're still in, I call it the guerrilla warfare, right? You're still in it. We're at the boot camp. We're learning, but you can do that pivot organically and still optimize the market so that you're not losing profits on the investment of the booth.
Wow, yeah, that's a good tip there, and I think probably having the kind of the hit list of buyers that you're looking to prioritize, right, and maybe having some kind of notes on specifics to each buyer, right, not just going in with one size fits all type approach. So over prepare essentially. Anything else, Stephanie, that you would say buyers are going to look for in terms of signals to assess whether a brand is truly ready to scale? I know we just went over a lot, but just want to make sure we haven't left anything out.
I think buyers right now, they appreciate when a brand is more of a consultant and they ask really thoughtful questions. So instead of me just trying to sell you something, that's not helpful anymore. At this point, you have to gauge who is your demographic right now. What's your pain points in your store? What would be helpful, right? Hey, I've got 1 or 2 SKUs that I think are going to be perfect introductions to my line. I'm not going to show you 40 that don't make sense for you. If you're in Florida, it's very different than if you're in New York, right? You're going to have to tailor it according to that consumer that frequents that store. So I would say as a brand, the best thing that you can do to invest in your potential, ask really thoughtful questions, make sure you listen to the responses on them, and then guide them to the best items that you think are appropriate for them to be successful with you.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. And, as a lot of our audience knows, we did get our footing over a decade ago as marketplace experts, right? Vendo has evolved greatly over the years to be more all things digital marketing, and more relevantly to this conversation, all things digital to in-store, right? How do you bridge that gap from the digital world to the in-store IRL, as they call it nowadays, right? In real life. And although we saw a dip in that in-store buying, post-COVID and during COVID, it has definitely picked back up tremendously in the last couple of years. And so the connection, the synergy between digital to in-store is even more important. But something that's been around prior to that, and I think is still important today, and I'd love to hear how it might come up in the conversations you hear, but is Amazon performance metrics, right? I know I've been in a meeting or two several actually with brands where they've told me the buyers are looking at what they're doing on Amazon. The buyers are looking at what are the reviews on Amazon, right? And helping that to kind of inform some things. So in your experiences, how important are Amazon performance metrics, like reviews, like pricing, like velocity in retail buying decisions today?
They're absolutely critical. I'm a consumer and I love Amazon. I love getting that box or 2 on my porch. It makes me very happy about life. I probably have $1,000 waiting in my shopping cart of items. And it's just because I've got a great network of influencers, of moms and parents, that I always look at their social and they'll say, hey, there's a dupe here, or there's a great item here. And I'll click on it and say, they're a trusted source. So I'm going to click on it and then I'm going to put it in my cart, but I'm not ready to purchase it yet because budgets are tight, right? So I put everything in there. And then when I circle back on it, now I'm looking at, okay, 4 stars, 5 stars. What are people saying? Oh, they bought it in 4 different colors and there's no regrets. They think it's a fantastic item. It fits perfectly. So I think that the media portion really accelerates that velocity and that growth of traffic to then get you to a platform like Amazon where it's so easy to make the purchase. And again, have it arrive on your doorstep. So that process is seamless. It's some of the best that I've ever had. And it just makes the consumer overall confident and happy.
Yeah, I love it. Well said. And I'm sure a lot of people could relate to some of those personal anecdotes, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty wild how Amazon has continued to evolve and drive even more, customer satisfaction and quicker delivery speed and all of that type of thing. And again, I think kind of going back to the experiences I've had, especially with emerging startups, they need, you need proof of concept to some degree, right? You can show, markets are growing in a certain direction and you're positioned well to capture that growth, but you still need usually some type of data, unless you're, like a, lifelong brand builder with a lot of credibility, or a celebrity influencer type person or something, where you can kind of skip that part of the process, right? And so Amazon is a great kind of proof of concept launch pad. D2C can be that as well. But D2C, you got to build out a fuller funnel, and that takes usually some more investment. Whereas with Amazon, you can hit those high intent shoppers and convert them pretty quickly and show some proof of concept early on. And I know that, again, buyers are looking at the Amazon data. Walmart in-store buyers are definitely looking at the Walmart.com data, right? I think that overlap is even stronger naturally, because if you're selling well on Walmart.com, that's going to be an easier buy-in for Walmart in store. So whether it's Amazon, Walmart, or both, I think the moral there is show success early on, and you'll learn a lot too from the data that you can repurpose for your buyer conversations. All right, well, switching wavelengths here a little bit. How much does retail media readiness factor into buyer confidence before launching a brand in retail, right? And we just spoke about how, startups, it can be challenging to win that interest, but just generally speaking, what would you say about that, Stephanie?
It is modern day, and it is the future of this business. So I think, again, critical, it's very, very important. And it just allows for that trust factor to be into it. If I'm a buyer and I want to work on a brand, I want to make sure that, again, that this product has a shelf life that extends more than one time. I want to repeat purchase. So I think that when a brand takes it on to make sure that they've got relevance and they are out in the market and they're doing their own thing, they're now supporting that brand to be successful for also the retailers that they're working with. So I think it's important. And it's something that if you don't, you can start small. It can be something small, right? It doesn't have to be big, but you've got to be putting some kind of effort into it and some kind of strategy to make sure that there's something going on in the market with it.
Yeah, exactly. And, whether it's retail media per se, right, advertising or marketing that you're already doing or you're committed to doing, or maybe something more fundamental like supply chain and operations, right? Or at least having some type of understanding of the level of marketing that might be needed to not just get that buyer sign off, but also give them the confidence that once you're in that store, you're going to do what needs to be done to succeed and sell, right? And I think that's where a lot of brands, emerging brands, fall short. They might be overconfident that, they have a retail sales broker, or and that person's going to get them into the store, but they're going to get them into the store. They might not help them stay in the store, right? And so being prepared for that switch sometimes catches people off guard. So kind of digging more into the fundamentals, I would say, of being retail ready. Where would you say brands most commonly underestimate things, Stephanie? And it doesn't have to be fundamental; it could be something more innovative. But
I think when you're going out to market, you're mapping out your whole go-to-market strategy, and sometimes it's the less glamorous side of the business that people fall short on. And that's more of the cash flow, right? And the inventory when you actually ship it out, and mapping it all out so that it's fluid. So I would say when you're really looking at everything, know your numbers from an aspect of, if I get a really large bulk order and I get a 50% cut up front, is it feasible for me to still get this out there? And then can I take on additional orders with some of the independents or this or that? So you just have to be very aware of your universe and what that looks like so that you can make good on any sales that you've decided to move forward with buyers.
Yeah, excellent feedback there. And I know it can be hard, not knowing what's next, but at least having a plan in place, right? Where, okay, if I get a massive order today, do I have, my ducks in a row to be able to turn that around as quickly as it possibly can, right? And it's not to say that can be quick enough. Some buyers might say, hey, we need this inventory here in a month. And you might have your ducks in a row, but that means 2 months, right? Because you're importing and you got to go through customs, and this and that, right? But at least having that strong understanding, so you can have that part down and not overpromise and under deliver. So fundamentals definitely crucial. And then I think just to summarize, some level of marketing or advertising preparedness, so that you can speak that language and be ready to go.
I don't know if you've seen it. There's been a thing in the market where social, right? We got to love our social, but they take pictures of empty end caps, and they're like, "There's no product in this store right now," and what a waste! What a waste of an opportunity for that retailer to be successful and to drive sales. So when you are a brand and you can promise, you say, "Okay, I'm going to deliver it to you. It's going to be 60 days. It's going to be in your storefront." The buyers are really leaning on you for this to happen, so that strategically they've got, the next product that they're moving in, and then they're trying to align it with holidays. So if it's very specific to Valentine's Day or to Mother's Day or back to school, if they don't have it within a certain time frame, you're going to ruin that relationship. So it's okay if you don't know the answer. Sometimes you need to say, I can get you this amount, but this extra quantity, I'm not quite sure about. So let's start you off with this amount, and then I'll get back to you on this one, and we can see where we can go. So that's something too, that don't fall victim of saying yes. You're going to lose the trust, and they're going to be really upset with you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like kind of that don't over promise and under deliver part of it. And I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking, well, if I do get that big purchase order, I just don't have the funds to finance it. Right. And so that's another aspect too. Like there are options out there, whether it's like factor loans, or there's all kinds of modern ways through getting, low interest credit and things like that. So, having that plan in place, so when you get that big purchase order, you at least know, hey, there's a pathway forward that I kind of lined up here. All right. Well, I think we've had a really great conversation here, and hopefully there's been some great takeaways for everybody. If anybody has any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. But what would you say, Stephanie? We've gone over a lot of different things today, and maybe you've mentioned this next answer or not. But what would you say for brands planning to attend trade shows this year? What is the single most important thing they should focus on first? Or going back to what I alluded to at the beginning, if you want to give some top tips.
So if you're a brand, first of all, you're investing time and money and resources to be at the event. So this one probably isn't spoken about too much. Make sure you're going to the right events. And what is your objective for that event? Because if your main objective is to sell product and you need it to be an order writing event, but you go to a more conference oriented trade show, it's not going to meet the objectives, and then you're going to be in that failure mode, right? So I would say when you look at a calendar year and you say, we're mapping out our full strategy, we want the thought leadership, but we also want to be able to sell product. We're really wanting to go and do like a variety of buyers to see where the product maybe sits most appropriate with, or I know my product so well and I know it's a health food item. So there's very specific events that I want to make sure I get to because I want to get into these specialty markets, supermarkets and stuff like that. So I think you have to be very clear, right? Going back to that clarity of what the expectations are and where the money is best used and who are the best people from your team to represent your company. I could send somebody out to a great market, and if they're not standing up and saying hello to everyone and here's all the details, it's going to be a tough market, right? You need somebody who's forward facing, that likes to be around with people who can properly represent the brand. So make sure it's the right event. Make sure you're putting the right amount of money so that you can be successful in the event. How much is a 10 by 10? Oh, how much is a 10 by 20? Do we want the width so we can properly show the product line and be able to do the interaction and get people to sit with us? Those are major conversations, and the whole team has to be on board, because if it's just one person that believes in it, you're going to miss things. So I would say make sure the whole team supports the mission and you got your game plan and you're ready to go.
There it is, everyone. The map plan for evaluating your shows for this year. And I think that's a great tip to kind of end off on, because as we started the episode here, it was the feeling of all these shows that are coming up and how are we going to be prepared. And so, you don't have to do them all. Just pick the ones that are most optimal to your goals right now. And also I would say, like, network with other brand owners out there that have gone through the shows a few years, right? Or speak to other brands in your category. What's the best show for grocery? What's the best show for a better for you grocery, right? Like as an example, if you're a grocery brand, right? Because that firsthand feedback will be invaluable in helping you to kind of prioritize. And newer shows that can be tough with. Definitely kind of getting those anecdotes. Well, this has been a great conversation, Stephanie. I'm going to just do a little summary here of some of the main call outs that I grasped onto as you were speaking. So number one, clarity, right? Have a real clear vision of how you're trying to speak to your products and your brand for specific buyers, and assume that sale, right? Go in over prepared with that clarity, with those talking points, so that you can tailor the approach to the buyer. But don't just act like you know it all. Also ask thoughtful questions, listen, and then pivot your conversation either in that moment or in your follow-ups accordingly, right? Because of course you don't know what you don't know, and there might be some things there that they say that you weren't thinking about before. The next one, show proof of concept, right? One easier way to do that is online through Amazon, maybe through Walmart.com. We didn't talk about TikTok Shop, but TikTok Shop is also exploding right now. And then really make sure you've solidified your fundamentals, right? Inventory management, supply chain, having all those ducks in a row. And then lastly, make sure you're prioritizing the right events based on your right goals, especially if you've got a smaller budget, and you can only afford 1 or 2 shows in the year. You really want to, hit it out of the park. So do that due diligence beforehand to make sure that investment is going to yield a good ROI. And hopefully with all of that in place, not a small feat, but totally possible, you will have the most retail ready year in 2026.
And one last tidbit, because I think sometimes people get shy about this element. If you're going to go to a trade show, call them up, find that sales rep or somebody that works on the buyer side and just say, I've got some questions, and can you help walk me through it? And it's underestimated, but most people want you to be successful, believe it or not. And again, it's the same thing. It's like all the other businesses. We want you to have a repeat business and exposure on the show floor. So your success is our success. So find somebody to reach out to and just say, hey, I've got some questions. Do you have a few, like 5 minutes? You jump on a phone for 5 minutes. You're going to feel much more confident of it. Is this the right way for me to do it, or should I go someplace else?
Excellent final tip there. Thank you, Stephanie. This has been awesome. Appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to continuing the conversations, hopefully in person, and we'll have to have you back on when we recap 2026 at the end of the year. How can people reach out to you if they'd like?
So I have an incredibly long name and email. It's stephanie.beringhele@asdonline.com. So I always say, hit up your LinkedIn and hopefully you'll put it in the details. If not, I will definitely put a comment in it. LinkedIn's the best way to do it, and that email, but I will put it in the chat down below so that you can have easy access to connect with me at any time.
There it is. And as usual, we'll be publishing this podcast to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Video version will be on YouTube. So please follow us on any of those channels. We'll also be sharing as usual across the socials. And thank you everybody for joining for another episode of Vendo Velocity. This was episode 183. Wow, we've come a long way. And thanks again, Stephanie, for joining. Have a good one, everyone.